Okay, yay, everybody's here. So we just had a big, giant, beautiful moon, a big full moon.
Yep.
And here we are rolling into May. So, Brian, I cannot wait to hear all the fabulous things that are going to happen in the
Yeah.
month of May.
I know. May Day today. May Day, May
It
Day,
is
May
May
Day.
1st, right?
Yeah, it is. A bunch of things happen May 1st, but in the writing that I wrote, that's how I titled it. It was May Day because that's an SOS symbol. And the reason why they have May Day is because S couldn't be broadcast with any articulation. So they somehow brought up May Day, and that's so it's translated into help me. So I'm sure we could all use that. We're doing a little May Day, help me kind of thing.
I don't think my kids would understand the
You don't think
meaning.
so? No, well, it does go back to the war and all that kind of stuff.
So, what's
Uh,
cooking for us this month, Brian?
I knew you were going to ask that question. I, um,
That's why we're here.
that's a good one. Cooking is good. Taurus is a sign of food and restaurants, So we're in Taurus now. We've been in it for a couple of days now, or since yeah, what was it, April 20th, right? So we've been in Taurus, but now the next few weeks before we get into Gemini, it'll be Taurus. And basically, Taurus and Gemini are highlighted during this particular month. So we want to make sure everybody knows that. And there's a big distinction between the signs. So anybody who studies astrology knows there's kind of a difference between the Taurus Earth sign and the Gemini air sign. So what happens through the month is that there's actually a highlight right between May 17th to May 22nd, which is called the Pleiadian portal. And that's when the sun will be at the end of Taurus going into Gemini. And that's basically where the Pleiades are located in the astrology chart. It's in late Taurus, early Gemini. So it's called a portal. And all through the month, we have portal experiences leading up to it and then beyond. For example, Mercury is right in Taurus today, making a nice aspect to Pluto, and it's a good day. But it also is going to be going into Gemini in 2 days from now. Then that's like a trailer to the portal. And then Venus will do that on the 8th. And that will also be going from Gemini, from Taurus into Gemini. So it's going to be a lot of Taurus for the first part, and then a lot of Gemini toward the end. And if you recall watching all these moon cycles, I call them pulse points. So the last one was April 20th, which was that full moon, the super moon, and that was in Taurus Scorpio. So there's certain different energy associated with that. It's called an organic moon. But we have another super moon, which will be closer to the Earth on May 26th, and that'll be in Gemini and Sagittarius. It's a full moon, a lunar eclipse, total eclipse, very powerful. And if you read about various opinions on what's going to happen, you might want to move, to another world or something because it's very intense. So we'll get to that. But so we have the new moon, which will be in Taurus on May 11th. So that's going to be a really powerful little thing because what's happening is all the planets are also lining up in Taurus, including a thing called the black moon Lilith, which is in Taurus. Uranus is in Taurus. Sedna is in Taurus. So it's kind of the first part of the month up until the new moon is really all filled up with Taurus, even though Venus and Mercury and Gemini. So there's going to be one really big event that I'm personally interested in, only because it's got to do with the transit of Jupiter. Now, if you study astrology from ancient times, Jupiter used to be the ruler of the sign Pisces. But then when Neptune was discovered, what happened was that it became assigned to the rulership of Pisces, and Jupiter moved over to Sagittarius. So now it's like a family reunion of sorts because Jupiter is going into Pisces for the first time with Neptune since 1856. And that's like saying, I made the analogy of, let's say, an older brother grows up, he's got a little brother, very young, and he goes off to college, the older brother. He comes back and he finds that his room is missing. The younger kid has taken over the whole family, so he's not number one anymore, so to speak. That would be like Jupiter going away and coming back and say, well, what are you doing here? Why are you in my room? So Pisces is a great sign. It's like a very comprehensive sign. So if Jupiter, the ruler, the original ruler, goes into the same room, the Pisces, as Neptune, there's going to be an amazing alchemy or chemistry that goes on as a result. Now, that's going to go on probably until, I think, July. And then it retrogrades back into Aquarius. And then it goes back into Pisces for next year. So the normal, I don't know if the normal is the way to say it, but Pisces is kind of the sign of spirituality and kind of the sign of religion, if you kind of really study that sign, and also imagination and creativity. So what happens when Jupiter, the big large planet, comes back and mixes with Neptune? Neptune's kind of like the divine energy. It's like when you have bliss and ecstasy of a spiritual nature. Jupiter is more how you believe as a religious person and what you expound, almost a political thing. So it's going to be amazing to watch what happens, and that comes up on the 13th, I think it is.
So Brian, as we move into the beginning of May, which we're right at May 1 right now, what are the energy of what we should be aligning with and being aware of to be able to help write it or help it manifest the things we want in our lives? What should we be cautious of? How are we working together with these? How can we best work together with the energies that are happening as we roll into the beginning of May?
Wow, that's a comprehensive question. Really.
Well, I'm a doer. So it's I'm a feeler first, but okay, so what do I do about that is always my...
Well, see, where you're highlighted toward the end of the month because the moon will be in Sagittarius during that eclipse. So we're going to put you in another room for a while, and we'll discuss with everybody else.
I'm banished already. We're 10 minutes into the show, and I've been banished.
I can do that easily. I kind of like doing that. Anyway, all right. So, okay, the first days, first week of May is pretty much leading up to the new moon in May 11th. That's a really, you have to think of that way, because with Taurus, even though Venus and Mercury are moving into Gemini during that stretch of the first week, so there's kind of like one thing's going on, it's like a big crowd's over there and all kinds of stuff is going on, and then Venus and Mercury are sliding into Gemini in the background. So Taurus is still, highlighted, and sometimes, I'm a Taurus, and I have a hard time figuring out who I am some days, because Taurus is a bull, it's an earth sign. So when it comes into this time of the year, it's also Beltane, the holiday for the pagan, it's called mid-spring. So it's the time of fertility. It's a time of people dancing around the pole and other things where the gardens are growing, they're planting, and it's a very fertile time. Taurus is that kind of a sign, very earthy. So if anything, I don't know if anybody grounds anymore, gets grounded, but that's a Taurus sign. We're supposed to be really getting really into our physical bodies, because Taurus is an earth sign. And I really emphasize a lot of time, because as a Taurus, I always believe my spiritual life is really physical. So, it's not some, out of body thing. It's just something like you're really grounded. So I encourage everybody to consider that. We have a lot of different aspects that are going to come up, like on the 3rd of May, the sun will be squaring Saturn. And that kind of a conflict, because then that's redressing. Is that a good word? What happened back in December when Jupiter and Saturn were in Aquarius, when it moved into the Aquarius age kind of thing. So, but the sun and Saturn now will kind of confront each other. So we could expect somewhere around May 3rd for kind of a heavy day of responsibility, because here we are trying to just have a happy little life and, food every day, take a walk, exercise, sing a song, but then Saturn comes along and says, yeah, but you have to conform to the rest of the world. So we have all these new rules. And so that's a tough day, that day. So, but anyway,
Brian, my husband's Taurus. My
Oh,
husband's Taurus. Yeah, he definitely grounds me because I'm an airy fairy Aquarius, you see. So he's great in that he grounds me. So I was interested to hear your Taurus as well.
oh yeah. No, I'm, I have the motto, when in doubt, eat, because I don't know what else to do. I eat, so I know what I'm doing, but that's kind of a Taurus approach. And I don't want to minimize that because Buddha was Taurus, and, there's a lot of famous people Taurus, Krishnamurti and all that. Um, but if you really go to the esoteric, I'd be curious how long you been married?
Oh gosh, how long? I can't remember. Oh, you put me on the spot here. I
Oh,
think
well, you don't have to.
18 years. 18
Oh,
years.
all right.
I know. I'm amazed it's still. I'm amazed I'm still here with him. We hang in there. We've been through nightmares. We've been through good stuff. We've just got through it all and kept going because, I realize in the end that that's the most important thing, to keep going. Too many people I know, younger people, who just give up at the first thing. And I've been through a lot with Pete, and we've got through it. So, and we keep going. No matter what, we keep going.
Well,
I love him. I do. But it can be tough, especially after 18 years.
well, you're a spiral cycle. Well, hopefully you'll continue on. I am curious, like if you guys came to me looking for a compatibility report, I'd probably hem and haw quite a bit because you're two fixed signs. And if you're exactly 90 degrees, a square, I don't know how you go through it every day because you always have to keep adjusting. And because you're a fixed sign, he's as opinionated as you are.
Oh yeah.
And, you have to learn how to be willing to do that every day. So
compromise is difficult sometimes. Yeah. Yeah.
So Brian, with this happening on the 3rd, go back to what you were saying about that was going to be a tough day because of
it will be really. Yeah, on the 3rd, I was just checking out a little bit again. I always have to review myself here, but Mercury goes into Gemini. That's okay. That's actually a good thing because Mercury is in its own home sign. So, talk about communicating with other people. It should start a whole month of good communication right to the end when it goes retrograde. So, but the Sun squaring Saturn is really a big challenge because again, it's almost exactly what we're talking about. With Penny, because what happened is that. Saturn's in Aquarius, the Sun's in Taurus, both fixed signs, just like their marriage. And so, but Saturn represents authority, like government and political, rules. And it's a lovely planet, but when it gets into action, it tries to, I don't know, kind of organize your thoughts, and it organizes your opinions, it organizes what you do. It's Lord of karma. So it sets limitations and boundaries. Nobody likes to have those, but, in the long run, it's like being chastened, well, don't do that because you'll learn a lesson. So it's a lesson kind of a day. And, another factor will come up later when the Sun will square Jupiter in the middle of the month. So both of the two planets that were together back in December will have their say with the Sun. So here we have Sun coming into Taurus and going, yeah, this is a great, and then boom, it's like a super dad comes in and says, no, you can't go out tonight or something like that. So it's just setting limitations or limits or boundaries theoretically for our good, but it's not an easy kind of a day.
Okay? And how does that show up? So how would that show up in somebody's life?
Yeah, well, classically, the Sun-Saturn aspect always deals with father issues. So in a way, like if I'm doing a chart with somebody, for all of us, but anybody with strong Sun-Saturn means that they had a father that was pretty stern, overbearing, maybe, out of control or something like that. So it shows up as a transit for the whole world to kind of own up to, I don't know, I call it the Lord of Karma. That's what Saturn's called. Father Time. Time is racing through us and all of that. So it shows up as a discipline, a discipline. If you learn your lesson, I always remember when I was in high school, I had a drafting course, and I had a teacher who was a former Marine. And even though I had the talent to do the drafting, he would always yell at me and everything. Like, Sandy, do this, do that. I didn't like him, but as it turned out, at the end of the semester, I learned the lesson pretty well. I knew how to draw much better. That's kind of the energy that it's that kind of like discipline energy.
So would the thing for us to do on that day when challenging things come up that
Yeah.
feel like imprisonment or is the thing to really ask, okay, what is it that I need to see here that is trying to teach me through discipline that's looking down the line?
Right. Well, consider this. This kind of just occurred to me, but like I said, Jupiter's going to have a square later in the middle of the month. But Saturn was the first one. Saturn and Jupiter were that big conjunction in December in Aquarius. So everybody's elated. It's like, wow, this has never happened in years and centuries and all of that. So the whole crowd got into it. We're all moving planetary energy beings. So now it's sort of like the teacher or whoever organizes comes and takes each one of us and puts us into a special room and say, okay, now let's talk one-on-one and get your personal journey in order, and we don't want you to do this, we don't want you to do that, because we love you, we want you to be happy, but it's not going to feel that way. That's the whole thing. So,
right.
The issue of a stern father, but I always think Saturn is also Chronos, and it's usually associated with time and often aging. So on an alchemical level, it's our first test of how we place ourselves in time and space in terms of our mortality. It also has that sort of, you only have so much time on the planet and the pressure is on. What are you going to do to, create your soul and things like that? So I would think that first, that day is going to be really, kind of struggling. You want to do something really good, but this comes up and that comes up and this comes. Finally, you're supposed to be kind of whittled down and sculpted into this perfect form. So it's always a good thing. And, in today's world, Saturn is also losing some of its rings. So who knows if the meaning was changed with that. But one more thing I always like to say with Saturn is I call it the planet of tone, Tone, sound. Like if you're in a submarine and you're under the water and you hear that deep whoa, whoa, that kind of thing, that's Saturn. That's like the mothership saying, come home, come home, come home over here, So you get navigational gravity almost to tell you where to not go and where to go. So it could be really an extraordinary day. All squares imply construction or hard work, but once you do it, you build it, you've got a great thing. So does that make sense?
That makes sense to me. Anybody have any questions?
Anybody? Who we got out there today? Oh, okay. Nancy, Kat, Sergio, Courtney. Oh,
Brian, I'm so impressed that you know how to look and see who's here.
Well, I've been practicing that all week.
Oh, that's awesome.
No, I can actually see some of the people I know. Some of them don't have their pictures up, but wait a minute. Courtney is here, but I don't see a picture. Sergio, Nancy's here, I see a picture, but I don't see the real person, just the picture. And a few others. I got somebody on the phone. Now that lady should really talk to everybody today. She's out. Why? Before this started, that's Michelle. She's out there somewhere. Hey, Courtney, there you are. Michelle lives way up in the wilds in New Hampshire and has horses and things like that. And she said before she's going to come to listen to this, she's going to take a ride on a horse through the mountains.
Nice.
So
nice.
that sounds good.
Nice.
We all need that. So anyway.
All right. So roll us. That's good for earthing or for foresting, right?
Yeah. Well, I envy what she lives like out there and has all this breeze and air and great stuff and all that.
So keep on rolling us through May here.
Yeah, well, okay. So again, the theme of the fertility comes up. Remember when we had April 20th supermoon? Now you know what a supermoon is. It's when the moon is closest to the Earth. It happens once in a while, and so it was pretty close, and that was in Taurus with Moon in Scorpio. But then when we go to the end of this month, we'll have another supermoon, which will be Gemini Sagittarius, but it'll be closer than this last one. And so it's be more intense. So we can get through until the portal. That's how I keep thinking. Until we get to the Pleiadian portal, that's May 17th. Then we'll be okay. But generally, it's like still Taurus is the theme for the first 2 weeks, 3 weeks even.
What is
Taurus? What do you think of Taurus? I mean, what is how do you describe Taurus?
Taurus is very much like you or Penny's husband.
All right.
Good one. Taurus can be, Brian, Taurus can be lazy people. I mean, my husband is going to get around to doing something, and he will eventually, but it takes time.
Yeah, I know.
That's Taurus.
We're the preeminent sign. That story of the rabbit and the turtle and the rabbit.
The tortoise and the hare, yeah.
That's the Taurus. Yeah. Well, I'm definitely the Taurus. And I remember even my mother telling me when I was just a little boy, "Come on, Brian, we're going somewhere." And I would say, "Wait a minute," like, "Wait a minute." And she'd have to wait until I was ready to go. I'm not going to go on my own pace. However, you can always trust in the Taurus, at least most of the time, right? They actually get whatever they're set out to do, but it's going to take time, right?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah,
so you're saying good pacing and focus on what the intention is.
Well, if we've been racing around like the whole world is anyway, it's time to really slow down. And it's really, just, I have to say that all the time, just, relax and, have something to eat, watch TV, listen to music. I've been recently playing the guitar a lot. I'm trying to get my singing going again, because I used to be in a choir, but I don't sing anymore. So that's a very Taurus thing. All these guys, right? I don't know, is your husband a singer?
I got him doing karaoke, but he was nervous about it. But once I got him up and doing it, you couldn't stop him.
Now he can't stop. So Brian, with this, that's hilarious. Tell us about the Pleiadian energy that you're talking about, the portal.
I love that subject actually, and I just read something earlier this morning, like all around the world, there's cultures, all kinds of cultures that I haven't heard about. They all believe they came from the Pleiades, and they have different names and stories about Orion, the hunter, chasing the seven sisters of Pleiades. And when I was studying all this material back in the late 1990s and then 2000, when we were having all this cosmogenesis happen, the Mayan calendar, that was all about the Pleiadians, because seven sisters are out there, and even the Bible calls it sweet influence. The Pleiades is called a sweet influence, and I love the way that happens. So, because we're supposed to be now, the theory would be back, I don't know, for 10 to 20 years ago now, the theory was that the photon belt, you've heard of the photon belt, that was engaged with the Pleiades. And the central sun, there's another sun beside our sun called Alcyone or Alcyone, and that's in the center of Pleiades. So whenever we got Pleiades activation, we're lining up and becoming, as some theorists would say, we're becoming the eighth planet. The seven sisters, we're like the eighth sister, because we're basically starting to orbit around that center, that new center, in a fourth dimensional field. I mean, it clearly, if you need to know about fourth dimension, you just look at Pleiades and what it represents. So every time we go into this, well, now they call it the portal, that means from the 17th to the 22nd, the sun will be going like right in front of the Pleiades star. You'll be looking up and the sun's right in Pleiades, and it goes 5 days. And that's when we line up with the fourth dimensional center. So if you pay attention to it over the years, it really works. I have very strong Pleiadian stuff in my chart. And so I look forward to this time every year, because it's almost like I can go to the Pleiades. But it's supposed to be a pacifying, beautiful energy, creativity, energy, enterprising, sensitivity. It's not really, it's never been a negative thing. The Hawaiian people, from what I've been told, believe that their ancestors came from Pleiades. So what do you do with that? Like, really? Yeah, how does that work, right? So it's a very sacred, like group of stars that happens every year. And so what makes it interesting this time is that, like I said, Mercury's going into Gemini. Mercury right now is in the center of Pleiades today. And then in a week from now, Venus will be in the center of Pleiades. So it's all moving toward like a big concert. Everybody's moving toward this big show that's going to happen, when we have the new moon in Taurus, which is also getting close to the Pleiades. So um, there was a book called The Pleiadian Agenda. Have you ever read that or seen that book? No?
No, I have not.
That one is a recommended book for a couple of reasons. But the woman who wrote it, Barbara Hand Clow, I actually knew when I was a younger astrologer, and we lived out in Western Mass, and we had about 20 different astrologers get together to study. And she had a chart to do she didn't want to do. She gave it to me, and the next thing I know, I went my path, and then she went in her pathway down to South America. I went all around the world gathering these kind of new information about Pleiades and all of that stuff. She's an amazing author in person. So I don't know where she is today, but that's a book that everybody should read. It's kind of related to the 2012 Mayan thing as well. So yeah, so yeah, Barbara Hand Clow, very interesting lady. Where were we going with that?
We were talking about the Pleiadian portal that's coming up,
right.
And you were talking about the kind of our connection to it, and how a lot of cultures, that the Pleiades shows up in a lot of cultures. A lot of ancient temples are aligned with the formation of the Pleiades. You were saying that the Hawaiians say that they come from the Pleiades. And so during this portal time, what is it that is offered up for the general population to look for and ride or take advantage of, if you will?
I would first answer that question by using the word essence. Okay, the essence of the Pleiadian star system, why I feel so close to it, and that's often why even in the regular year and cycles, I don't really feel part of the planet that much. I'm always out there somewhere. Okay, but what happens is that, again, like I said, it's a fourth dimensional field of reference. So let's say we go into the middle of May, we start being drawn to, I'll call it maybe spiritual creativity, where we're now not thinking third dimension, we're actually living in a field that relates to, the fourth dimension. So, you still there? You're not on my screen anymore. Uh-oh, we've lost Verenia.
No, I'm right here. I just had to go get some more water.
Well, all right. You have to ask the teacher, though, for permission to leave your seat.
I can hear you, though.
That's just a sound play there. Anyway, okay, good. But no, I want to say it's kind of like, I don't know if bath is the right word. I used to call it divine bath. The energy is so mellow and so beautiful. It's almost like you can't have anything negative during that time period. It's so sacred, but you don't want to abuse that. You want to be ready to be able to do it. So it might be almost a fearful thing when you start feeling like you're being taken into other worlds. And I mean, a lot of people want to do that these days. So, but when the Pleiades thing comes up, it's like I feel like I'm lining up with my ancestors. Like I said in my chart, I have very strong Pleiadian energy in my chart. So I'm kind of like a Pleiadian. And it's sort of like, it means I don't really relate to this world the same way as everybody else, I don't think. But at any rate, it's a sweet influence, like the Bible says. So we go into, how do you distinguish between third and fourth dimension? Third is the physical, but fourth is what? It's a little more metaphysical, and the fifth and sixth and all the other dimensions. So also, well, the other thing I should mention is that star Alcyone, which is the center of Pleiades, is like the big guy. Like the really big. Our sun is the big guy, but the Alcyone is what they call the great central sun. So we're lining up with a greater heart center, if you want to use that. And we talk about heart, you always talk about the heart, the heart center, heart empowerment. So it's a greater heart. How's that? We look at it that. And it's almost like meeting God, I guess, So
Well, and wouldn't you, I mean, when I hear this, what I start immediately, you start applying it to your own life, and and referring back to how it impacts your life and how it impacts what's happening in the world today. And from my perspective and what I feel, it's been really super intense for me. Part of it I know is that I'm in my second Saturn return, right? So that's a massive thing. But also there's clearly a massive shift trying to happen on the planet.
Oh yeah.
And so all of the controlling factors that are created from this older, slower, denser energy are clinging and holding on and trying to create more control, while this other thing is trying to transform. I feel like we're wanting to evolve to something kinder, more whole, more heart-centered, more fourth and fifth dimension. And so aligning with this energy to touch it and taste it and feel it and create from that space is what I would be looking to do. And because it can be difficult when you look up and you see all the real third dimensional, heavy, weighted control things that are happening on the planet as the planet itself is trying to evolve. For me, I'd be like, wow, this is the place I want to touch to and feel to help me create what's coming by connecting with what is from on that plane, if you will. Did that make any sense?
Oh yeah, that's great. Well, no, because it kind of inspired me to say a few more things about that. But remember how I said that all right, here's a way of looking at it. Back in the 60s, the solar system was hurtling towards another part of space they used to call the Red Dragon. That wasn't a good thing. But back in the 60s, suddenly a little blip happened and the solar system went blip, blip, blip. It started to move in another direction because it was in, let's call it the magnetic field of the Pleiades. And so we were starting to go into the fourth dimension at that point. Obviously, the 60s were a big time in history, and so that's what we're doing. So everybody trying to get there. So now, I think it was, I don't know how long ago, but the solar system is now fully into the pathway, what I call the Sea of Light. And the Sea of Light was happened in 2013, where the solar system went off the cliff of the wave of space, and it dropped down in a waterfall, landed in the Sea of Light, which is photon light. And so it started to head toward Alpha Centauri, which is our nearest star. And if you read the news nowadays, we're getting all kinds of signals from Alpha Centauri. But anyway, on that pathway, this is how I explain why Earth people don't understand the global warming and things like that, because we're no longer in the same part of space. So our ecosystem is now that pathway that goes right into and is being drawn by the Pleiades sisters. And so it's almost like a flyby, and the gravity then propels us up to Alpha Centauri. So yeah, we don't really have a choice. Well, you do have a choice. You don't have to be in that zone. And that's where people are probably plunging into the negative zone because they don't understand the goodness that they're bringing in. So if I was like the prophet on the street, I'd be every day, proclaiming how beautiful life is, how much availability of wonderful creativity, love, anything you meant, all in good, in good portion, you know. So, but you don't want to miss it either. So it's hard not to. But again, you got to adjust your thinking and your emotional feel, and your heart has to open to a new realm. I think that's how I would say it. So I could be overly stating this thing, but I don't think so. Remember how last month we talked about the Andromeda zone and things like that? The Andromeda zone is just about ending in the first week of May. So we're in the last stages of being close to Andromeda in the veil. And so in May 8th, it drops into, more fully, well, it basically drops into the Pleiadian rodeo, if you want to call it. So I love the Pleiades. So Seven Sisters. What was I going to say about that part? Oh, the fourth dimension. Photon energy. What do you think photon energy is? I mean, anybody got a clue? Penny, you look like you can answer that one.
Energy from photons.
Yeah. What is a photon energy? I mean, you don't have to answer that.
Isn't that like, it's a source of energy from light. Is that
right? Light. It's a light.
Right.
Okay, that's pretty good. Yeah. So imagine that we're now well, actually, ever since 2013, our solar system has been floating in light. Okay, and again, that's why it's so easy. If you just accept it, you have a great life. There's no negative to that, you know. But it's a fourth dimension. We rise above a third dimension and/or influence the third dimension to act, more healthfully. So if you're going, you just talked about fifth and sixth dimension. It goes on and on and on. But this is like, you don't want to miss this wave that's coming through this time. That's pretty much, it's so loaded up with that energy. Now, the cusp of Taurus and Gemini, Taurus 29, 0 Gemini, is pretty much where the Pleiades is. So you can look, and everybody can look at their own chart and see where that is, and locate to um, where they find the most positive expression, of that Pleiadian energy. It's like being called, like religiously or spiritually. You're being called to a greater awareness and a greater love. And isn't that what we're promoting? We're trying to expand our influence among people, genetically and whatever. But, the thing is, once we go through this portal, there'll be those who have been transformed and those who will not have been transformed. So it also kind of brings up a little division in terms of the human race, because some people will feel it and other people won't, you know. And so I don't know. It's this is a month of Gemini because, like I said, we're just going into Gemini with Mercury anyway. So Mercury's right now in the Pleiades. Venus at the end of this week will be in Pleiades, and I know that everybody loves Mercury when it goes retrograde, right? Did you read that, my friend? I mean, like Mercury goes retrograde at the end of this month. Okay, it goes into its shadow on the 14th, which is right before the sun goes into the portal. So Gemini is knowledge and power of knowledge and thinking and all of that. So if anybody writes books, if you're writing a book or journaling or anything, you're going to do a whole bunch more than you did in the other months this year. And then you want to go to the Alcyon or library. You want to go to where the information is there. It's like going to Egypt and discovering something under the pyramid that was never been discovered. It's a massive month of discovery. I'll call it that way. I guess I can quote myself on that. Everything is, knowledge is so available. And the hard energy of Taurus is to, like, remember I said Buddha was a Taurus and always meditated during full moons. And the eye of the bull, the bull's eye is a concept in astrology of when the Buddha, for example, decided to just sit under the tree and I'm going to figure it all out. And then he finally gets the single eye filled with light. That's very similar to what we're talking about. It's like, the power of enlightenment. So that's what we're kind of coming into. If you want to be enlightened, go to Pleiades for this coming month. Just go there and absorb it. It's like going to a lake and swimming, and just go and bathe in this energy. Don't do anything else except that. But your creativity.
What are the dates on that again?
What's that?
What are the dates on that again?
May 17th to May 22nd. Right. And so that's when the sun goes into Gemini. It's at the end of Taurus at May 17, 18, 19, 20, then it goes into Gemini. And then that's why I say like the 27 degrees of Taurus, 28, 29 of Taurus is Pleiades, and then 0 to 1 is Gemini. So it's about, what is it, no, counting 22nd, I said 5 days, 5 days of that energy of Taurus, Gemini. I want to say one more thing about that too. It acts on my consciousness here because if you can lift up to the Taurus energy, every month the sign is 30 degrees to a sign. The last few degrees of a sign, like we were just, in April we were in Aries and now we're in Taurus. But when it ends in Taurus, it's like your final test for Taurus. That's why in the Pleiades it's so important. How do you get the resources, the values? It's more than that. It's more than what I'm saying. It's like a tangible exchange of molecules, photon light that actually, if you want to be healed, just take it on a Pleiadian kind of day. And it's bigger than, anything on the planet. So it's just a beautiful kind of a thing. Maybe you should have festivals. It should be Pleiadian festival. You want to start one like that? Anyway,
I'm
so
sure there's one that already exists, right?
oh yeah, no, I know. Well, I mean, I haven't really come across one. I'm sure there is though, right? I wouldn't mind being that one, but anyway.
Brian, have you seen on kind of that? I mean, I sort of did a bender there, but have you seen Close Encounters of the Fifth Kind?
Oh yeah,
Okay.
yeah. I was thinking about all of those. Remember the what was it? Steven Spielberg made a movie called Contact, right?
Oh,
Uh,
yes, yes. I've read the book and I've got the film. Yeah.
yeah, well,
So,
and before that, it was Close Encounters,
Oh, Close Encounters of the Third Kind.
right?
Yeah, that is my
So,
all-time
for those
favorite.
of you who don't know what Close Encounters of the Fifth Kind is, Brian, you want to tell them what that is? It's really
Yeah.
worth watching.
yeah, well, I was going to say that where I live now, and it's a little peaceful little valley town, in nearly central Massachusetts, and right up around the corner, about 2 miles up the hill, is an observatory. But I didn't know about the observatory. It's where they filmed that film. And they use scenes in it. It's called, SETI, SETI, Sensory X-ray Intelligence. Well, right up there, it's closed. They don't have the technicians anymore. They have people coming from Harvard University to check the data. They discovered, like, I don't know, something like close to 40 different intelligences out there over the course of since the 30s. However, I was really excited by that, saying I'm right up the street from a Spielberg film, site and all of that. But when you go up there, the fence is all up, and a big sign says, no, we haven't discovered them yet. So some people get kind of,
God. It's so those of you who don't know what the movie is, it's a documentary, basically. And what
okay,
he's saying, SETI is Center for Extraterrestrial Intelligence, right? And so it's a documentary that basically Dr. Greer was part of the CIA team, I guess, who was interacting with these. He had the ability to interact with these extraterrestrial beings, and he was saying that the government and the governments around the world were wanting to control the information, and they did it by taking aspects of the truth and making it but spinning in a way where they were saying that yes, we have contact with them, but we're not sure we're safe from them, when the truth is they're higher dimensional beings and they're working from a state of very high consciousness. So they're wanting to be involved with us is really an empowerment to us. And so it's a really interesting documentary that I think is it to me, it's not separate from, Brian, what you talk about in the stars and the fourth dimension, the fifth dimension, consciousness all being a part of it, and how the planets and these various energies impact our ability to connect, not just with extraterrestrials, but with everything in a higher dimension.
right. That's the whole
Guys,
idea.
do you remember? I can't remember what year it was, but I don't know if Brian or Verenia have ever done this, but do you remember when they actually asked us people, ordinary people all over the world, to do it through their computers? SETI.
Oh, yes, right.
I took part in that.
Oh,
Yeah,
is that?
Yeah,
I
you
did
can do
take
it.
part in that. It was just fascinating.
They have an app
Yeah.
now, CE5,
Yeah.
I think it's called. Yeah,
Oh, right, right.
yeah.
Well, I've come up with a new word the other day. I got up in the morning and said, you know what? I'm a human alien. So I come from human-alia.
Yep.
Well, I'm not exactly completely human. I've got a little bit of an alien mix anyway. That would make sense to anybody that knows me, because it's all around. It's everywhere. It's just, but like I said, it's a different dimension, a higher essence, and a lot of the other lore that goes around Pleiadians is also like Arcturians or Sirians or things like that, or Andromedans, all have more advanced cultures. And that kind of goes back to the last month that we've been experiencing Andromeda. We're supposed to take in the DNA of Andromeda now if you want to know what the future is going to be like. So,
Yeah.
but so anyway,
I'm thinking of Space Odyssey now, that we're part alien, part human. That was a fascinating film as well, and yeah, that was amazing. Yeah.
good.
I'm kind of into that as well. That they say God is the aliens came, and whatever they are, higher beings came, created us,
Oh, yeah.
and we're their experiment.
Well, Well, literature. When I was first getting into astrology a long time ago, I would go to the bookstore, Metaphysical, and be inundated with, this kind of like search and philosophy and whatever. I'm actually writing a science fiction book right now, so I hope I can get it done so everybody can read it. Like, it's like really like crazy stuff, but it's
Love
actually,
to read it. I would love to read it. When you've created it, please let me know.
oh, it's getting there. Because every day, I went through a thing one time called the MUFON Society, capital MUFON.
Yeah, I know that. Yeah.
Heard of that? Well,
Yeah. Hey, I'm an X-File fan here.
oh, well,
Big
there you go.
X-File fan, so I know a lot about all that. Yeah, yeah.
Everybody else know MUFON? But yeah, this mutual UFO network or society. So I had some people from my church a long time ago were coming out of church, and they said, "What do you do for a living?" And I said, "Well, I do astrology." And I try to say it quietly because everybody jumps on you. But oh, well, you should come with us this weekend. We won't tell you where we're going. And of course, I went down. They had me take a swim in the swimming pool first. I don't know why that was too. But I got in the car. We went way down into the woods outside of Boston and into almost Connecticut. And all of a sudden, we're at this big mansion, and a guy comes up on the top of the steps, and he looks like Jean-Luc Picard. And I went, "Oh, okay," and he's got his hands just like that, like, "Welcome to my place." And oh, okay. So we go around up the corner, and there's 30 or so people with cameras, sketches, and they're all people who've had UFO experiences, right? And inside of his house, he had all kinds of spacecraft made of aluminum cans. It was a trip. So I got to learn a lot about their experiences, and I shared my own. So you don't necessarily want to hear my experiences, but I have had those, well, yeah. I mean, when I was a kid, well, anyway, we won't go into that part probably, but so I'm fully alien consciousness. So, but that doesn't even sound like
Go ahead.
good.
Oh no, I would just wanted to say we've got a little more than 10 minutes left here, and I want you to be able to give everybody what you want to make sure you want to share with regard to May.
Yeah, I know. I was worried about that. Okay, well, let's just jump. Well, all right. The sum total of this month, there'll be 3 retrograde planets. Pluto's already retrograde, but then Saturn goes retrograde on the 23rd, and that'll be the first time since the Great Conjunction. So that ought to be, that'll go until July. It'll be going retrograde. So our function of Saturn that we talked about in the beginning of the month will be online. And then Mercury, of course, goes retrograde on the 29th. And one of my more favorite studies about Mercury these days is the shadow. I never used to know what that meant, and now I do. So on the 14th of May, Mercury starts to slow down. And now, because of that, it doesn't go retrograde until the 29th, so like two more weeks later. But because it goes slow down, a lot of astrologers believe now the Mercury retrograde period lasts 6 weeks, because it's a couple of weeks before, and 3 weeks retrograde, and another week afterwards. So you want to kind of pay attention to that. So what they were saying, as far as what I was reading about a lot, is that as you try to get your thoughts, like perfecting your thought plane, and not letting it go into negative zones. And, so we'll have, like, say, 6 weeks of Mercury kind of experience. So that's something to pay attention to. Plus, one of the more curious things that's happening is on May 14th, one astrology site that I was reading said that was the most auspicious day in the month. And I said, well, why? I couldn't find out any more about that. But May 14th is also that turning point. Like I said, it's when the shadow goes in, but also Jupiter's just gone into Pisces. So if we can make it to the new moon in Taurus, which is the 11th, and then kind of relax a little bit, and then the 13th, that would be when Jupiter goes into Pisces. Now we're kind of divided the month into half. So first month is getting all Taurus, putting on your Taurus suit or something, and you're getting your physical body in shape the best way you can. But more so with that photon enlightenment that you're going to get ready for. So now you're all set to go. But when it gets to be the 14th, it's a big turning point in the month, and then we start being more Pleiadian. And of course, the final chapter of this month really is, the big lunar eclipse, total solar eclipse. And they call it, it's funny because some people call it the flower moon. Okay, that sounds good. And other people call it the blood moon. And the reason why they call it the blood moon is because of the color it takes on. So we just had the pink moon, which is so called because of the flowers, the flocks that were pink during that time of the year. But now we're having the blood moon. And anything I've read so far about this lunar eclipse, most astrologers are kind of being a little bit more powerfully cautious. Okay, be careful of this one. This one's so intense. A lot of change is going to happen. You break up with people, or you do this, you change your job, you're taken away to Australia, which might not be a bad thing. But it could be a life-changing eclipse, and so it basically starts the eclipse season in that sense. That goes into June. So June will be the next eclipse, and then there'll be one in December. So the first half of the month is all Taurus, be patient, feel enlightenment, be aligned with the essence. And then the second part, even though that's still Pleiadian, kind of gravitates more toward the big changes coming up. So if you know any Sagittarians, I don't know what you're going to do on the 29th, my dear. You got any plans for the 29th?
Well, I'm
You
supposed
don't have to answer
to
that.
be somewhere, but I don't know that I'm going to be there.
Oh, okay. Well, all right. So you're planning on going somewhere, right? All right. Well, the theory is that most astrologers will say no matter what you plan, it's not going to happen, or the plan gets changed and altered in a whole new direction, and so you want to go with that new direction. But it's a real consciousness shift and a real awareness of like what life's all about. And, Sagittarius is always the sign of the future. So it's like, you could probably write a book on futures. But on that day, you start writing another book. Oh, well, now I know this. I have a new future, another way of looking at it. So I think you'll be affected more than most people on that day, and changed forever, So
I'm ready for that.
You can report
Taller.
back. Huh?
I'll be
Yeah.
taller.
Okay, well, who knows where you'll be ending up? Maybe it will be Australia. So anyway, what else was I going to mention? I think we went to Venus. Oh, I know I missed this one in the beginning, but it's actually more. I don't know if we have a numerologist out there somewhere, but 555. That's this month. That's May 5th, May 5th, and it's a 5-year. So 555 is a calling card. It looks like I have somebody nodding, and yeah, that's cat. Okay, yeah, really. So just consider that. That's a time of great creative essence, that carries through the whole year. So what else can I tell you? It's something. Oh, I'm going to show you this. Okay, ready for the screen show? Can you read that? Okay. Is that visible?
Yep.
Okay. All right, because that's kind of the visual of this month. The blue is the new moon, Taurus. How's it go down over here? That's the full moon. So you notice the red line, that's the moon, that's the sun, that's the Sagittarius Gemini, and that comes at the the end of the lunar eclipse. But the new moon is in Taurus right here, and you'll notice Venus and Mercury, Sedna, Uranus, all is in Taurus and Gemini. So that's your cluster zone for the month. And then the yellow is when Jupiter goes into Pisces and joins up with Neptune. Then you have all the other things. So those three zones are the ones you focus on this month. So if you're doing your own chart, you look to see where they're transiting, and then you can kind of figure out a little bit more about what to do. But that's called the world horoscope. The world horoscope is Aries rising. So where does that go? Yeah, right here is the Aries part, and it goes around. So from this chart, you can tell what's going to happen in the world. You can tell the outcomes of governments, etc. And so that's why you draw it like that. But so now here's something I didn't begin to mention, but Taurus is a sign of money. Okay, so we're about ready to. I'm sure if you read enough about it and you invest in it, whatever you're going to do with money, the whole subject changes rapidly this month up until the May 11th when when the new moon happens. So the money consciousness, everything that you want to talk about has to do with the Taurus. Gemini has to do with the knowledge and has to do with thinking. And Taurus kind of moves around slowly, and then Gemini is the butterfly, comes up and goes everywhere. So you'll have a very solid value shift in the world, like money, values, and resources. Resources are a really big issue, environment and so forth. But anyway, that's kind of the picture. Okay. And does that picture make any sense? No.
Did to me.
Well, no,
Anybody else?
I want to just put one more thing in there because that's something I didn't say, but where the moon will be in Sagittarius, right? There's also, this is the star group that I mentioned about Alpha Centauri. That's our next nearest star. It's about 4 light years away, and they have 3 planets now, I think, that are going around it. We're getting signals, from outer space from them. Everybody's excited, thinking we're being contacted, but it's in this zone where the eclipse is going to happen. So, I mean, you could really wager pretty strongly on the fact that you might get a connection with Alpha Centauri, this particular month. So I'll put my wager on that. I really believe it's going to happen soon. So, and that was the thing that started in 2013 when the solar system shifted out of the course it was on and into a new zone, and all that. I don't know if anybody is really worrying about global warming, but it is to be of concern, I think, right? Do you believe that we should be concerned about global warming? Anybody?
Well, yeah. I mean, we're in a 26,000 year cycle. This
Yep.
stuff shifts, and the question, I mean, obviously there's a massive warming of some sort. It's it's a 26,000 year cycle, and we're not really working together with it to ask the question, how do we move through it? That's
Yeah. Well, around here in Boston, they're concerned about the water rising into the streets of Boston. And they build walls and stuff. And say, whoa, what? And in North Carolina, they call ghost trees. The coast of North Carolina, the trees are dying because the water's seeping in and destroying them. So it's not like a fictitious thing here. It's a real thing. And also, the other day they said that the Earth tilted another degree because of global warming. So, okay, I felt it. Oh yeah, how you doing? Anyway, so but I'm particularly interested in the global warming phenomena because it's so important to be aware of our Earth and our place on it.
right. Yeah. And it's not necessarily something, I mean, we're definitely making it move faster. We're impacting it negatively for sure.
So what do we do?
Well, I think when I was at Greg Braden's conference, he was showing the ice cores, that go back millions of years, and they pull the ice cores, and they can see every 26,000 years or so, there's this massive Earth event, and that's where we are now. And so, we're warming up, the seas are rising, all of this, it's actually going to get colder, is what he's saying. He's a geological scientist. It's going to get colder, and it's nothing that we have the technology to be able to thrive in it, but we have to stop pretending like we're not moving through it.
Yeah, that's really good. It brings up to mind the idea of the planets. I mean, if I'm writing my theory of planets, always people say, Saturn's doing this to me, and I don't tend to believe in that way of thinking. It's more like Saturn is doing this and we're doing it, we're synchronizing. And so the planets, if Saturn is having this phenomena and Jupiter's having that phenomena, then it's reflecting back to us on the Earth. And we're part of a huge alchemical shift on the consciousness of the Earth right now. I mean, we could be floating away by tomorrow. But yeah, I agree with you with the cold and the warm thing. And then, of course, you could always say, it's happened that way, earthquakes, volcanoes, why worry about anything? But you have to really, especially our.
No, and it's, again, I don't think it's worry. It's be respectful. Like,
Yeah.
be aware, and then let's respect it and work together with it. Brian, we're at the end of our hour. How would you like to wrap this up? Does anyone have any questions before we take off? And then I would like a final word from you, Brian.
Just wondering, is the
Courtney?
is the photon belt, is that also an electronic belt?
Yeah, electromagnetic field.
Okay.
Photon is a variable of electromagnetic energy. So it's kind of electronic. Yeah, I mean, I guess you could say it that way. It's magnetically charged particles that reinvent themselves on a genetic level. How's that? It's we're floating more through a photon field, and we're affected by it. So let's say if we're going to another field of atmosphere, it'd be more dense, and you'd be boom, 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 boom. But when you're in the electromagnetic field of the photon, it's like always light, like a light sailing ship or a sailing boat. Okay.
Well, we're kind of, I think that brings to point that humanity needs a rise in consciousness so we can meet what we've already done. And since 1950, I mean, we know fossil fuels, they're causing this global warming. Now, obviously, when the temperature differentials play with the wind, and we've got, I mean, they just came out with a big recent study where they put a unmanned submarine under Thwaites Glacier on Antarctica, and it's huge. There's like big cavities. I think they mentioned 3 of them the size of the Grand Canyon under there, where it's melted because the water is relatively warmer. So it isn't a matter, do you believe in science of global warming? It's a matter, are you looking at the newspapers and the media? I mean, it's there's not really any doubt anymore that we didn't cause it, corporations and leaders, and people are working hard to change that, to try to wake them up. I mean, but also if you get into the photon belt, that's so fascinating because some of it's a question of our DNA. Depending how you look at the vaccines and evolution, it's an amazing time we're in.
Yeah, definitely. There's a lot of opportunity. Everything is in transition, and the opportunity is, how are we transitioning? Like, what are we transitioning into? So, and what's the experience of it going to be, right? Brian, the last few words for the month of May.
Just carry forth on a thought about our participation now in the 4th dimensional field of space. It's basically for those who have chosen or been chosen to be, the astronauts of the future in our solar system. The reason why we can't figure anything out is because there's no precedent. We don't have anything to go by. There's no past that has any of this information. It's all brand new. But we're chosen out of intelligence to be able to figure it out. So it's not like an easy day, what do I do today? Well, figure it out, so you're an astronaut. So I always think of that. And I know that if I was to make a final statement, I would also include what I call galactic thinking, because that's kind of what we're all about. Now, Pleiades aren't the galaxy, but they're in the Milky Way galaxy. That's what we are. Andromeda's coming close, over future. The veils are mixing. Oh, I do want to say one thing that nobody knows probably about. Venus, they discovered, now has a white light around it. And I thought, oh, good, that makes me happy. It's like, how many years people send you a white light, to help you and heal you. But now actually there's a veil around Venus. They don't know exactly what it is, but it's like a white shining light. That makes sense for Venus to me. So
nice. We're going to pull that down.
Yeah. I'm just going to Venus. That's it. But anyway, no, I want to make sure people understand too that in the consciousness, how many years ago we all only thought that the solar system was just that, but now there's at least 4,000 other stars that have at least one other planet. If not 5 or 6, they go around the star like us. 4,000, and they say every star in the Milky Way has a planet. Oh boy, so what? I don't know if the aliens want to come to us, but we're going to them, I guess. So
right.
so,
All right.
yeah.
Well, thank you for that report.
Yeah, Nia, can I just ask, how's Ellen? I haven't seen her in ages.
Well, she's been, each one of us has our own call. So she's really been on this amazing journey, and it's taken her to places where she doesn't have a lot of connection, like a internet connection. So we touch base when she gets it, and so that kind of a thing. But she's doing great, just incredibly expansive right now.
Oh, good, because I miss her. I miss her calls, but I was just wondering how she was doing.
Yeah, she's got to find. It's challenging internet connection, and the first call is the evolution of what she's being called to. So she's doing great, though. I'll tell her you said hi.
Oh yeah, do please, thank you.
All right, thanks everybody for joining us. Brian, thank you so much for that. And if you guys want a more detailed thing, you can always go to the website. His astrological thing is up there every single month. So thank you again. Thanks, Brian.
Thanks, Brian.
Thank you,
everybody. Bye bye. Bye bye.